So the question is, are there any global threats, and what can we do about them? So as I shuffle, I'm really asking, visualizing in my mind, thinking of the global community, all of us human beings, and then all of the species connected globally. Really thinking about human beings, and we're focusing on, is there any threat? Like, is there in the consciousness, what's going on? Is there a lower consciousness towards us and our people? So I'm talking about myself, my family, my listeners, people who would be actually hearing what I'm saying. Are there threats to us and our people? I wanted to say Americans, but then, there's an international community beyond just Americans that are of a higher consciousness and really exist without borders. Okay, so I'm shuffling and focusing and thinking and visualizing the planet, visualizing the sort of this awakened web. Think of it like a spider web connecting all people, and visualizing what I feel to be like healthy, and the planet connecting, people connecting, and seeing where we are in humanity at that point. And are there any threats going on in the subconscious, like, harm to others? Or what are the solutions? What do we hope for? Okay. Of course, we have here the malevolent person in the immediate past. So that points to, there's only one card associated with dark behavior that really talks about like manipulation and really sticking it to you, and it's the Seven of Swords. And this comes up in the immediate past. It's what the eyes first go to. That's the manipulator. That's basically lies. That's basically like, I'm taking what's yours and I really don't care. And I'm taking it off. So what, And that's all different aspects. But of course, here we have swords. Swords is mind. Think psychological. Think psyops. Swords, mind, very intelligent. To be able to grab a hold of many minds, lie to them, and take off with them. It's the backwards. It's the dark consciousness. The Seven of Swords in the immediate past. We said, do we have to prepare for, or any solutions or anything we can do in a global wise of what's going on, like in the consciousness? Is there any painful, any dark? Obviously, yeah, there's, malevolent energies that are happening here, especially in the immediate past. And what's over the head, it's kind of a time of humanity waking up and realizing, I mean, I am getting the Queen of Swords, which is sort of taking all of those swords back and putting them into one. Basically, it's focusing and visualizing and taking that and like leaving dark things in the past and just becoming aware of possibilities. And snoring. She's snoring. Wearing the clouds. So basically, kind of cried like, okay, I got past the storms. Now it's my badge. And the clouds are behind us. Those things that were all associated with the thief, basically the manipulator. So it's basically going, hey, I got one up over. I understand that. I'm all about beating that one now, and doing that with a really sharp, focused mind, strong in the analytical, in the focused mind. And what's the association here with the filter over the mind? Okay, coming from a place of anxiety and sort of this pained, wounded place, there's this awareness that new things need to be happening. And a lot of people thinking and looking at the globe and wondering, where's a better place for them? When I see that, I kind of realize there is no better place for people, like a lot of people thinking if I move here or there, I'm going to be better off. And I don't know, not always, because they show manipulation really kind of happening everywhere. But when a lot of people who are alive are wishing that they could be somewhere else, that they're not at that time, that's not very good. That's not very happy. Um, Better to be content and pleasured with, what you have and what you're around and where you want to be, and what's really aligned for you to be able to make your purposes happen. Um, so basically, they say it's like there's this fear, is what the heck feeling. It's the Nine of Wands. Wands is when the chi kind of gets built, burnt out. It's sadness. It's anyway. That's the thoughts over the head. This is the thoughts, and that becomes the visualizations. The thoughts and the visualizations. It's always this. Nine of Wands is what's being visualized and thought about often. So that's what's coming to, and that's what's bringing back to you too. When you put that out, oh, what the heck, now we're wounded, oh, we're just stuck here, we're kind of in a jail, we have to march on, and this really sucks. You know, we're not smiling and we're not happy. We don't have a lot of dopamine keeping us going, not much adrenaline. You know, it's just kind of just whatever. That's the Nine of Wands. It's like a low chi, low energy, and this eventually becomes physical, and you know, the fire, the what keeps the cells going to, associated with that becomes weaker. So basically, it's fear. It's living in a place of fear and complying. This is the prevalent thought pattern. Whereas in the immediate future, okay, so we said, is there anything to really be aware of that we can prepare for? So how would you prepare? Page of Cups is doing things a new way. Cups is emotional fulfillment. Do things in ways that emotionally fulfill yourself. A lot of times that means try new things and do new things, opportunities that might be something different. Visualize new things, try things in new ways. Even if you can't physically go out and do a class, at least try a different kind of thought pattern or a different kind of visualization, or see if you have a different timing or you feel different. You know, try different things that might emotionally satiate you a lot. A lot of times we push those away and we'd rather just be in pain. And we know that, well, when I did that before, I was happy. And when I did yoga, I was peaceful in my mind. When I kept a journal, I was peaceful. And I hear that all the time. But like I'm seeing here, it's kind of like saying revisit those things that give you the water so you don't have a thirsty soul. So if you know that you feel better if you do something, and then you don't feel good if you don't, basically they're saying it's kind of this future, but you know, nothing is really written in stone. But it's like, you know, we said, what are the solutions to? Maybe if there's this action that's going to like hurt us, or this bomb or something coming from some other country. And basically they say doing things a new way with water, it's the Page of Cups, like it's sort of an innocent new path. That would be the way to Six of Swords and Four of Swords, which is sort of like, okay, Six of Swords and Four of Swords. Swords, think mind. Once again, we're going to the mind. And when it's Six of Swords, we're looking at emotions associated with the mind. And when we get to that place, we can calmly navigate through the waters and not be stuck in any sandbars, or, you know, like waters being emotions, and you're in your vessel and you're going over you're, think of a boat and you're going over the water, and the thoughts are really what fuel the boat. And if they're good thoughts and they're positive and they're visualizing and they're focusing on forward, then the water's going that direction, the energies are going that direction. That's what he's going to. The island, there's trees over there. And also Four of Swords, what takes him there? Four of Swords is essentially, it's, think of yourself as a computer doing an upload. It's really good to sleep and dream, and that's what's happening at that point too. But it also has to do with consciously being in the conscious world and having and putting your mind's eye and attention on the unconscious world. Basically, it's meditating, taking those chatter and those things in the back of the mind and the backdrops, and really becoming aware, highly aware of what is going on in your mind, and taming those chatterbugs and bringing them into a focus, and understanding the oh, hold on, I got sidetracked by the finger. Okay, so we're going to go on to we got the focus, the mind, the meditating, the, you know, even symbolically here, it's the some of the cards, or the metaphysicians, when they talk about that one there, it's the fighting. You know, the person is dreaming about fighting, he's thinking about fighting, or he's visualizing fighting. But basically it just means he's thinking about all the challenges he's been through. He's either catharsis could be this too. It's kind of like combing your hair, but combing your mind. It's getting it out. It's getting it, thinking about it, instead of just it's somewhere like a sliver in the mind and heart, and just continues to be this painful thing. It's then instead put into, if you imagine like cleaning on the inside, putting things and organizing things into shelves and you know. So basically, it's like cleaning the one mind, as what is associated sometimes in the divine books of, you know, the prophets talking about meditating or cleaning the inner eye, going into the closet with the one mind. And, you know, it's all about, it's kind of like drinking water. It's very essential. And when we don't do it, we begin to start really getting a lot of anxieties. And because all that back talk in the back of the mind and the chatter, it's highly draining, and it can make a person super tired, and it can really clog your filters, so you can't really see better things. Eyes get foggy, makes you really tired. You just can't think of a clear thought, learn a clear thing, make sense logically of many things when the mind is just tired because of a lot of chatter going on, whether it's personal guilt stuff or bad things towards other people. But it's that ruminating on things that are painful, that are breaking down from the inside. Here, we're talking about as a humanity, so we're not talking about an individual, but it's a ruminating of, I need to own this, I need to have that, I need to steal that. It's that Seven of Swords, on to looking at a new way of living, which is Page of Cups. It's just like going on a new path, going, oh, this is where the real water is. We need to drink that. We're thirsty. We want real satiation. We want to be healthy, basically. We want to be out of pain, basically. Um, and so we look here at the influences, which is, okay, quote, quote, future, but it's the consequences of the action of going on the good path to being able to heal, basically, starting in the mind, meditating, looking at the past as the what brought you to what you have now, and you're able to use that as a way to bring you to success, to your goals. Um, so if humanity would calm and be calm, so we're not looking at an individual right now, we're looking at humanity. So we say, if us as a species of humans can be calm and relax for a while and think about things and really contemplate, go introspective, and be able to get ourselves out of the sandbars where we can kind of go towards, you know, some smooth water, some smooth, not be thirsty, but have things be calm and non-agitated, then we can, Queen of Wands, like develop enough confidence to be able to let go, to be able to let go, to be able to let go. Okay, develop enough confidence, Queen of Wands, to be able to, Ten of Wands, which is, so Queen of Wands is confidence here. It's like, it's confidence because you know when to give up. Like, you know that, well, you know, that battle was not really worth trying to win anyway. There is no final goal that's really that big of a deal. You know, it's having enough confidence to take your ego out of things and really assess situations for what they are, instead of, you know, what you want them to be, or the lower consciousness of I have to be right every single time because my ego depends on it. You know, that shadow ego that should never be fed into anyways. So the Queen of Wands talks about the higher side of a person where it's balanced, and that confident higher consciousness of really understanding how to put that good thought into yourself and that good attention onto positive things, and bring more of that into it. Put positive energy into your talents and bring life to that. You know, don't break yourself down and, you know, it's all about giving to and bringing life to, putting the gold into the gold, which is the conscious. Like, I'm conscious of this about myself. I know I'm a good, you know, think a person that may be a good dancer or whatever, you know, great strength and abilities, or, you know, inventive, ingenious, being able to create things, and or just, you know, to figure things out, or to train, or psychologically, so many different aspects that we have as human beings where we would fit into as being, you know, who we are, doing our so-called jobs, fitting into our programming of who we are on a planet, you know, aligned with your higher purpose, being a steward for the energy of like what's around you, healing. Steward and stewardess is really the higher goal on the planet. What we're looking at here is do we see some people in uh, sort of counterproductive to that, to the higher goal there, which would be virus and breaking down, and the opposite of healthy. So the opposite of collaboration and the opposite of teamwork, bullyish and selfish. All of it comes up. It says, yeah, here in the past, but I said we, as like our cohort and our people, people that are pretty much families and call us serfs or whatever. We're not the elite, so us serfs. Are we really at a global threat right now? You know, ecologically wise, is it, you know, but they say really in all ways, but it's all coming from the mind. Everything manifested comes from the minds of those who are manifesting them, individually but also collectively. So the new path and the new ways in the future, the Page of Cups, and the new way of thinking of just chilling out, relaxing, taking a moment, not reacting, as a way to get out of the barges where we feel stuck and we can't move forward. Stagnation. Okay, so it leads to emotional and mental destagnation, being able to move forward to the goals that would tend to get away from, you know, to really know how to. So when there's a lot of pride, it's really hard to admit you're wrong. A lot of pride might want to keep you where you are, even though maybe it's in the face of like some danger or something. But at some point, there's the letting go of the pride and then running to safety. At that point, they're saying, because I say the solution to that, and they say when we come from a place of no ego, but just, you know, like I'm going to do my part and I'm going to make sure that my family's safe, and I'm going to start with myself, and I'm going to keep myself at a place where I can maintain, so I can keep them safe and they can keep theirs safe. And basically it's just live life and be happy, you know, and protect and be of a good influence, and as they say, pour the waters upon life around you so they don't have to be thirsty. Like, don't steal their water, like give them water, because there's plenty, because when you're tuned in, you have an unlimited supply. You know, when you're at the top of the mountain and you're awakened, you have the unlimited supply of the fountain of youth, the waters, the philosopher's stone. So there's no need really holding back. It's plentiful, and you just pour it on the life around you. And in order to get to that place, though, there comes this confidence, and this is the letting go of, uh, letting go of, and then I see Ten of Wands, and there's so much associated with that. It's like when you're holding on to so much, it's backbreaking pressure. Energetically, you're so busy, you're doing things, and you're just like, it hurts, you know? Like when us humans take on a lot, and energetically our back hurts because we go out of balance, and we're just kind of like looking down all the time, and the energy gets thrown off chakras, and you feel like you're heavy. And you know, this is the Ten of Wands. This is the card coming up. So basically what they're saying is you can create solutions to those problems of the malevolent beings who are planning, I don't know what, but Seven of Swords will look, killing the money system big time, reinventing ways of profit and making money off of a lot of tidal waves. Okay, so we're thinking water, we're thinking a lot of water, and we're also thinking money. So we're talking water is emotions, but physical water too, and lots of it's the Page of Wands, which is new, associated with the bank, or you know, the Pentacles, the physical gaining of something. Now, when you look at that in a higher nature, that would be something being born, something growing, and going through phases of equilibrializing and learning. Although in this aspect, you see it as something new, and it's an economical system, and it's juggling a lot of, I know it's money, but it's like there's two, and one on one side and one on the other. It's almost like it is like one on one side, one on the other. It's like war, people up against each other, um, my way is better than yours, my money is better than your money, basically is what I'm looking at. But money, think of everything associated with anything that could be associated with greed. My this is better than your that. So it's looking like there's a lot of like oppositions here. So of course that's, I guess you could call that war, but it's just oppositions and thinking mine's better than yours, and that's the low consciousness. And there's teams up against each other. No, mine's best, and no, yours is the worst, and whatever. There's all tidal waves behind it. So I'm also seeing something about water. I know water's, I see it too, even, physically, like water coming very high, very high. And just, okay, so water's a big one here. Associate that and also emotionally too, because when people are trying, when someone's trying to say they're better than the other and they're threatening to kill that person and the other person is, and then we see it as teams, or families or groups or countries. No, I'm better than you. No, you're the worst, and we have more stars on ours, and you have no stars, and like that consciousness, when it's so low like that, and there's this, I see one on one side and one on the other, and it's sort of like this tug of war and this equilibrium, and one wants more and one wants the other, and it's like they're kind of keeping each other alive with their banter, I suppose. But when you really sit back and you look at that, you see that the person who's sort of juggling it, and it takes you back to uh, people up against each other, and there's one person behind the scenes pitting them against each other and kind of watching the whole thing happen. And they seem like they're really so big, and they sort of hold the keys to pleasure and pain. It's like they took the element of the high priestess, and it's in or the Hierophant, essentially, what we were talking about earlier. And he's saying, I have the idea of what pain is, and I have the idea of what pleasure is, and it's almost like it's the one who says, I'm the way to pay pleasure, I'm the one to pleasure. And it's people fighting over different beliefs on the way to pleasure and holiness and sacredness, and really, I'm the way to enlightenment. Each one, if they would to claim, I'm the way to enlightenment, and I'm one of the ways to enlightenment, and if we collaborate and bring our ways together, then we can enlighten together, and we can just like ascend from all this pain and be a species or a human family who's connected, again, and at least healthy. At least we're healthy and we're out of pain. I mean, that's the very least we could really hope for. That's the biggest gift, is to be healthy, longevity, a good life, harmony, as opposed to the opposite is pain and unhealthy and a bad life and disharmony and stress and cortisol versus serotonin. Not good to always be on that stressful, painful side. But we bring it from within, we bring it from our thoughts. And if we look at what's going on with the world, we see that it always starts in the thoughts. And when there's a lot of negative thoughts and hurtful thoughts and heartbroken and people not really understanding that the real harmony of giving to others and receiving back and protecting yourself and only giving so much, enough of your excesses, having good thoughts about other people, not really having major expectations, but tolerant, uh, but expecting people to be a team together. And there's more that I can explain here, but as I'm looking at it, I see lovers behind, which is what I'm describing here about the male and the female energies, or the opposite polarities coming together and enliven things and make things have a life. Like without the one or either side of a battery, neither would have life to the battery, but it's the same, like when you look at it in any way, shape, or form. But you see this having the Ten of Swords and the Three of Swords over it with the question, it's over the head, it's more like the filter, it's more like how we can perceive things, because that's how clean we are in our able to see perceptions in a realistic way. It's really hard to through a sort of foggy lens, but this is more, it's Ten of Swords, it's Three of Swords. So each one is a storm. One is very painful, and the other one is heartbroken. So one is tired and laying down and feeling pretty much this dead, tired feeling, exhausted and pained at the same time, and hurts and just um, being sucked in the drain and you can't get up. To the heartbreaking, which is, when something's been ripped away from you and your heart literally hurts because, you just you just sort of need that energy around and it's been ripped away. Um, this is what's going on, really, like in humanity. And people are finding their pleasure and their harmony. Really, here's coming out like this female. It seems like the male is covered um, with the Ten of Swords over. It's pretty an imbalanced way to live when there's more attention on different qualities of one gender and um, less attention on the other, or let's say a negative kind of attention on either. And, you know, it's good to be a male, it's good to be a female, but then it seems like people are really confused about that too. And I know that this is, they confuse sexuality and heterosexuality with a way a person acts when in reality, heterosexuals and homosexuals really do act very similar. You would never know certain homosexuals because they act just like any other people, and it's no big deal. It's just, but people always associate the feminine side with being a homosexual, which it is not. There's just certain kind of people who act certain kind of ways, male and female, and certain other who don't. And sometimes you can tell, like in a feminized male, but it doesn't necessarily mean here in the metaphysical concept that the right mind is associated with a certain kind of sexuality as opposed to the left mind. And the receptive feminine quality has nothing to do with sexuality. That's where we're looking at North Scorpio, and we're at the eighth, we're talking sexual things. Here we're just talking like the polarities of the receptive female and the passive, and the energies of like the combination of the two bringing um, an enlightenment or a new being. Like I said, think of a battery. You have the south and the north. When the two come together, you have a life. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit. It's the light that comes from the two opposite polarities existing and being in harmony. That's the Lover's card. So ask a question or something, and I'll pull 3 cards.
So, what was the answer to the original question? Is there really a threat or anything the world should?
Like what? Like what specifically the threat? Is there a threat? Yeah, well, obviously there is, because there's a lot of malevolent thoughts, a lot of fear, a lot of psyops. It's pretty obvious. There's a lot of people, and they're thinking they're better than others. So there's kind of this posturing of war, or fighting, or it's the money. We see that being something pretty big, and that could just. I mean, there's a lot of manipulation with the money, and we see that too, and you can see that when you just think about how there's so much money in the money supply of a certain country. Think of Canada or America. There's only so much money being circulated and being printed, although there's much more numbers on a screen that come up from banks and loans, and like way more than what they physically have anyway. So it's just numbers on a screen. It's just like a psychological psyops.
Yeah.
People chasing the empty, nothing. It's really just psyops here, is what I'm saying. That's what all these swords are. So when you have these malevolent beings and malevolent thoughts, and this is everything associated with narcissistic. It's all for me. It's mine. It's very painful, heartbreaking, and also look on the other side too, on the lighter, higher consciousness. When it comes to heartbreaking, you really authentically miss and love somebody, and it's a bleeding heart, as opposed to the dark consciousness. It's heartbreaking to not get somebody manipulated into the trap you wanted, and then they go free. You know what I mean? You lost your narcissistic supply. So
is there anything we can do?
yeah, here it goes again. Over The immediate future is death, two, and then Ace of Cups, King of Cups. Death is what takes away stagnation. Think Scorpio. Death is, you have to end that. Something needs to end. Two, Ace of Cups is like a new way. Ace of Cups is like emotional fulfillment or any kind of fulfillment, but it makes you feel good. It's happy. It's okay. I was thirsty for that. I needed water. Now I'm better. But water is emotions for the soul. So it feels a lot better to get happy over something rather than to get mad over something. And so, for like certain people who get mad over things all the time, if they were to understand, and that's all of us, we all have some traits of, or we're not walking on water right now, we're not all fully enlightened. So, it's the idea of taking in the right, appropriate water because it's there. You just visualize it and it comes to you, the emotional fulfillment. What do I need to be? Okay, I need water, but what would make my soul not thirsty? Um, Somebody to understand me, somebody to connect with me on an emotional place. Someday I don't have to be afraid of. I think of all these things of emotionally, how would I be fulfilled? Visualize them, and that would be these new energy. Look, this is water to the King of Cups, to obtaining that. Because at the King of Cups, you've reached the higher consciousness and the ability to obtain an emotional good thing. You can visualize that. He wears the cape of the water. He wears the cape of like the Pisces fish. He's at the very end where he realizes I can't give too much because I want everything and everyone pleasured and happy. I have to hold on to what's mine, and I have everlasting water all around. Fish are happy all around me, jumping around, and basically that means his subconscious mind is happy, and he could want no more to be happy. He doesn't need to manipulate to get smiles or likes. He can just be himself, and people automatically accept him, which brings a nice dopamine effect when you're accepted versus the opposite. Yeah. Um, that's the new way versus the old way of it's I'm mine and I'm better and you're the worst and it isn't yours. I'm going to prove all the reasons why I'm better than you. And, like those lower consciousness things that two groups fighting up or three groups or families fighting up against each other or neighbors fighting up against each other, just people in general, trying to prove to everyone so that they can finally feel good about themselves that they're the best and they're better and everyone else deserves to die or at least be hurt or in pain somehow. You um, that's the higher consciousness here that would have to be inside people if they were to be safe from whatever. So you wanted to bring it more focus in on a world event. Like, is there a world event? Does it have to do with missiles? Okay, judgment 20. 20 is almost to the end. 21 world. Okay, that's like saying awareness. Then through all the cycle. Okay, so now we're aware. Of course we're aware. This is like you're aware of. You have the awareness. You're not dead in your mind. You're aware that there are things, going on. That they're talking about missiles. It doesn't take a psychic to have to know right now they're talking about missiles. You're very aware of it. Everyone's aware of it. Or they're seeing it. And it's being put out there and it's in your faces and the image is just directly in front of you. That, yes, you're aware, And at this point, as we go on into, like, the energy surrounding it, it's making us feel, it's Four of Pentacles, Nine of Swords. It's almost like, okay, Four of Pentacles is when you go, oh my God, am I going to get hurt? Am I going to get hurt? That's when you can feel the five coming up. You feel the Five of Pentacles is pain. The Four of Pentacles is like, oh my God. Or almost like, okay, I got to save my money or I'm going to get real poor. Or I have to shut down something inside so I can regain strength. I need to sleep now. The Four of Pentacles is I need to regain balance. Because, oh my God. That at a point when life gets like that spiritually, would be an individual or a person, a people, a human family. If you're looking at our human family, our surf people, us, not the elites. We're not looking at that because we're looking at our people. Do we see a threat? Because we know any threat is really what comes from the elites anyway. it isn't one of our people. Our people are just pitted against each other, and that's really what is the sad thing. So we're looking at our people here, and do we have any threats? Yes, of course we have threats, but then they say the biggest threat here is to really just know what's going on, and Nine of Swords is, it's a lack of sleep, it's a lack of everything. It's like, think of pains in the mind and thinking about all the wars and the fighting, and not stopping and just keep thinking, and oh no, this is what's going on. It's just like a panic attack over and over and over and over. It's like a panic. At that point, at Nine of Swords, it's panic attacks, basically. So what I see is this holding on and getting ready to have panic attacks. Like everybody's stressing out. And that's going on here in the week and a half. And, okay, so how are we going to ask the next question to make it make sense? Is there any threat of a warlike nature? It's kind of a scary thought, but anyways, whatever. Just pull through on that. Queen of Pentacles, Page of Pentacles, Four of Cups. It's more money now. It's more about taking people's and what they own and leaving them with nothing. That happens before there's any like direct anything else. I mean, it's just, okay, this person has a good job, they're sitting high in their material place, and they seem to be pretty good and pretty, there's energy around, it's all very physical, and they're happy with that, to sort of being bumped down into a lower category where they're sort of dethroned and knocked down in Queen of Pentacles, then back into sort of a depression. Knocked down into depression. That's more than anything. Knocked down into apathy and depression and distrust. Okay, so I'm just going to pull three and say, what's the way out of that? Obviously, they say magician. Once again, that's all about visualization. The best magician can make magic happen. This is by visualizing. That's why you have the emotions. You have the cups and you have the sword on the table and the pentacle, and everything symbolically, the wand symbolizing a harmony and an understanding and a higher consciousness at each of the four, and understanding of the elements and how to use them to make magic happen, or in other words, visualize. And you're wearing the cape of the red cape of desires, but once again it becomes like a badge, like in the Hierophant, it's a badge. It's an honor. Like, I've been through the ego and I've conquered that. So he has a lamnescape over his head. It's eternal. It's associated with the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Cups. It's sharing the Pentacles. It's like a person who's mediocre but not super rich and not super poor. That's us. It's kind of our society, sharing with, it's like, here, I have the pentacles and you have the water, and you have the water and I have the pentacles, and let's share. That means I'm going to have less food, but I have enough food. And you have a lot of water, but you'll have less water, but you'll have food and you have plenty of water. It's sharing and it's visualizing, and just sort of visualizing. And I suppose it would be good to visualize, as they show here, you sharing your excesses and your people sharing their excesses. And sometimes that's even just being able to make somebody happy, authentically happy, not just what you think makes them happy. That's lower consciousness. Like, oh, if I do this, they're going to be happy. It just constantly annoys people. It's immature and it's lower consciousness, as opposed to the magician, who really wants to bring about positive change and understands that collaboration is key, and is able to, because here we know that the money is a psychological game and it doesn't mean anything. And we know that when the money is manipulated and it's really just air, it's numbers on a screen and it's really false. It's a token. Then we have to really come up with our own strategy of how Yeah, we did wake up with no land, and we did wake up with really, you know, nothing left, and so we have to share what we have left with one another and replant seeds and um, use things sustainably, not waste so much. Give your waste, not, it isn't even waste, it's sustainable energies. Become sustainable. The waste becomes something that's useful for another. Kind of the idea of think of this, but think of it in this macro effect too, of how it would affect the world in different cities in another way. But certain cities, one is in Brazil, and it's highly sustainable, very clean, very intelligently built and engineered by someone who understood the the system of nature and the healthy energy comes in and energy comes out, and that refuels more energy for another. So basically the entire system is spent energy that goes into another system. So like their rail, their transportation, their pigs, they're all a part of, they give energy and they are part of the sustainable cycle, and that's why they're one of the cleanest on the planet. And where we have the clean sustainability, we have we have a much better uh, we don't have to fight over things. We don't feel pain, we feel happy, and we have it's like the magician, think, visualize happiness and focus on that, and it becomes that. And when you're really at a higher consciousness, anything that is manifesting around you, it got created somewhere in a subconscious thought, whether it's deep in the patterns of the minds around or yourself. But you can pull that subconscious thought out of yourself, and you can help heal it from others too. But that's the essential time. Right now, when we have people focused and tuned into dark and lower consciousness things and afraid, that's the energy they're putting out. And that's really kind of just where they are right now, you know, afraid and feeling like they don't really have much of a voice and a choice. And there's always this thing, can I make it? Can I do this? It's always like sometimes the treadmill gets faster and faster, and it's hard to keep up with demands, especially when money's, used to be one guy used to be able to take care of his entire family, whereas they could be comfortable and go on vacations, and now it takes at least two incomes to keep a family going. The money's worth hardly anything in comparison. 50 bucks could buy you something wonderful back then, whereas it can buy you barely anything these days. You have to make thousands just to survive. So essentially, it's a lot harder work and a lot more work for less in return. Less essentials, less assets, less what we need to be sustainable. Um, what's we gotta stop this and figure out what to do with the dog, and then we'll finish. Maybe we'll